Today I am at the Tippecanoe Battlefield Museum, here amongst this rather nondescript group of trees. It was here that one of the most important events in early American history took place. A battle, the Battle of Tippecanoe, a battle that had long-term consequences for Native Americans living in this region, for United States westward expansion, and for the political prospects of the generals involved in that battle. One of the people most associated with the Battle of Tippecanoe is actually someone who wasn't even here when the battle took place. And that, of course, is Shawnee Chief Tecumseh. Tecumseh was born in the late 1700s, and in the early 1800s, he formed a movement that was the greatest Native American resistance east of the Mississippi to American westward expansion. His argument was fairly simple: that all the treaties that had been signed by various tribes with the United States government were illegitimate, that those tribes did not have the right to cede away all this land. And his plan was to form a confederation of various Native American tribes to collectively resist American expansion. If he was the political leader, the military leader of this movement, he was also helped by his brother, Tenskwatawa, better known as the Prophet. He was the spiritual leader. Tenskwatawa is known as the Prophet because it's said that he did, in fact, predict events that took place, natural disasters and things of that nature. And he leads this multi-tribe spiritual movement. He's uniting them on a spiritual basis. His brother Tecumseh is uniting them on a military, on a political basis. In fact, not far from here, not far from the battlefield, is a place that came to be known as Prophet's Town. That is the town, the village where the prophet lived, and where many of the tribes that Tecumseh had recruited came to reside. Opposing Tecumseh and the prophet was William Henry Harrison, the military governor of what was then known as Indiana Territory. He was the representative of the United States of America. Tecumseh had met with him, the prophet had met with him, but he is the main person responsible for keeping an eye on this growing Native American movement, and, if necessary, putting it down by force. In 1811, Tecumseh's movement had grown in strength and in size, and a large number of warriors were living not far from here in Prophetstown. Tecumseh was away, recruiting more soldiers for his confederation. And he left pretty clear instructions to his brother, the prophet, said, don't engage, don't get involved, do not attack Harrison's forces, don't attack the Americans. We are not ready for that. Alarmed by the growing strength of Tecumseh's movement, Harrison brought troops to here, to Tippecanoe, not far from Prophetstown. In fact, the prophet and Harrison were due to meet the next day. That meeting never happened. Despite being told not to engage, the prophet and the other leaders at Prophetstown, which was down the road, were alarmed by the military presence here under the leadership of William Henry Harrison. And so the prophet ordered his warriors to attack William Henry Harrison's forces right here at the Tippecanoe battlefield. Before the battle took place, it's said that the prophet gave a speech right down the road at a place that's now known as Prophet's Rock, in which he told the warriors who were getting ready to attack that they didn't need to worry about the American forces that were here, that they would be protected from American gunfire, and that they were sure to be victorious. As it turns out, that's not what happened. So we're going to follow the Heritage Trail right down these steps and over across the creek. We're going to see if we can't find Prophet's Rock, which is where it's said that the prophet gave his speech to the warriors before they attacked, promising them spiritual protection and, I suppose, guaranteeing their success in the battle. So this is a creek, as I understand it. That was the dividing line between Harrison's encampment, just the little top of this ridge, right over there, and the direction of Prophetstown over here. So if you walk down from the battlefield and you cross the street, you come here to Prophet's Rock, where it is believed, standing somewhere on here, is where the prophet Tenskwatawa gave his speech to the Native American warriors, promising them spiritual protection before they engaged Harrison's forces. The speech was given here, and they headed over that direction, across the creek, to where the battlefield is today. The surprise attack took place right here on this very site. In fact, if you walk around the battlefield, you can see where some of the officers actually were killed. These markers show where it took, or where some of the officers fell. Killed November 7th, 1811. The stone markers recognize where officers fell. If you walk up here to the monument, you can see the names of the privates, enlisted men who fell. At the end of the day, the Battle of Tippecanoe proved to be a disaster for the Native American Confederation. Despite the fact that there were heavy losses on both sides, at the end of the battle, there was little left of Tecumseh's Confederation. In fact, many of those who had come and pledged their support left. And Tecumseh's dream of a unified Native American Confederacy to oppose American westward expansion failed. That's probably the most significant outcome of the Battle of Tippecanoe. But it's not the only outcome. Without Native American allies, Tecumseh was forced to rely more heavily on the British for supplies, for the British as an alliance, reasoning that an alliance with the British would also help stem American westward expansion. It's because of this, the alliance between Native Americans and the British giving them weapons and supporting their attacks, that helped set the stage for the War of 1812 that would have come later. So in some ways, the Battle of Tippecanoe is one of the precursors to the second war between the United States and Great Britain, the War of 1812. And finally, there are political ramifications of this battle. Old Tippecanoe is the nickname of William Henry Harrison. During the age of Jackson in the 1830s and the 1840s, it was a very politically potent strategy to play on westward expansion and the common man and the people who had tamed what was then the West. And when the Whigs wanted to run a candidate in 1840, there was no better candidate than William Henry Harrison. Now, of course, this battle takes place in 1811, so he's a good deal older at the time. But in 1840, the war hero, William Henry Harrison, plays on his success at this battle, the Battle of Tippecanoe, with the campaign slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. John Tyler, of course, was his running mate. So one could easily make the argument that William Henry Harrison probably never would have become president if it had not been for this victory here at this location. And of course, this monument speaks to the significance that Americans in this part of the country placed on what took place here. Here, just outside the museum, you have this historical marker. Here, on this site, military forces commanded by General William Henry Harrison engaged in a battle with the Indians of the Wabash country led by the Prophet, brother of the great Indian leader Tecumseh. The battle destroyed forever the hope of Tecumseh for a complete Indian confederacy, launched Harrison toward the presidency of the United States 29 years later, and is considered one of the primary events leading to conflict between the United States and Great Britain in the War of 1812. As is often the case in warfare, what is a tragedy for one side becomes mythology for the winning side. The Battle of Tippecanoe was a disaster for Native American resistance in this part of the country. There was no stopping American expansion. And out of that tragedy for Native Americans came political opportunity, economic opportunity for American settlers who wished to move into this part of the country.